Ugh, evolution. What a crock. Can we change it, please?
Evolution is a scientific fact, unless you're ignorant.
If it's a fact, why is it called a theory?
In the words of the late, great Stephen Jay Gould, evolution is a theory. It is also a fact, and facts and theories are different things, not rungs in a hierarchy of increasing certainty. Facts are the world's data. Theories are structures of ideas that explain and interpret facts. Facts don't go away when scientists debate rival theories to explain them. Einstein's theory of gravitation replaced Newton's in this century, but apples didn't suspend themselves in midair pending the outcome. And humans evolved from ape-like ancestors, whether they did so by Darwin's proposed mechanism or by some other yet to be discovered.
Give me one good argument for evolution.
One of the best arguments for evolution is that now with genetic technology and the fact that we can sequence entire genomes of creatures, it's possible to look at the genetic code letter by letter, and you can compare them side by side for different organisms, and the similarities and the differences line up pretty much exactly with the family trees that had already been put in place by anatomy and geographical distribution and those kind of things. And the fact that it all fits together, Don Exodus 2, link, has a video that talks about this. But right now I'm going to give a very non-technical rundown. Okay, now this, I'm going to use just a metaphor here with this nifty image, okay? And we've basically got just two characteristics on this organism at the beginning. And if you look down at the center, we've got a blue square, okay? So we'll just say that there are just two traits that we're going to look at on this lineage here, and that's going to be the shape and the color. But if you see, we go from one generation to the next, okay, and I've put a mutation on each one. One of them has a mutation that has changed the color, and then two have a mutation that have changed the shape. Okay, now if you see if they reproduce, they're going to pass their mutations along, so you can see the colors go over here. The lighter blue gives birth to lighter blue ones, okay, because they inherit that change. And the one over here has a little hole in it. You can see its offspring have little holes in them. And then this one has lost the edges, and it's more round, not a square anymore. And also its offspring around. All right, and we're going to go through one more round of reproduction. Boom. Okay, and if you notice here, this light blue one has a little tumor or something on it, and its offspring also, they have a tumor. They inherited that new change from their parent, now they all have it. And if you look over here at the dark blue ones, again, they've all three inherited the hole from their parent, and now if you look at the next generation from one of them here, okay, they've all got the same body shape, one of them has a mutation for a different color. So far, so good? Alrighty then. So hopefully everyone gets the idea, and I'm going to skip ahead one more generation and one more. Okay, so I apologize for the tedium in setting this up here, but here's the point. Okay, now if you look at the way this tree is set up, you can see that certain kind of mutations are only going to be found in certain areas. For example, what I called a tumor earlier, we only see that on this branch over here, and it doesn't show up on this branch or this branch. Over here we've got a mutation for purple that popped up, and you can see it. Everyone down the tree from there has inherited the purple, but if we look on the other branches, we're not going to see it anywhere else. Similarly, over here we've got the one without any edges, and we find that on that branch only. That actually does bring me to another subject here. Like I just kind of threw this thing together randomly, but let's say if this was a real tree representing a relationship between organisms, you can see the one that lost its edges, that mutation only survived one generation, and then that's the end of that branch right there. And one way you could look at that is maybe that mutation wasn't very good. That one was strong enough to survive, and it managed to reproduce that one time, but then its offspring didn't, for whatever reason. And then over here on this tree, you can see it. They went on for a little bit longer, and then that one stops over there. But so it goes a little bit further. 99.999% of all species that have ever lived have gone extinct. Then over here, if you look in the middle, we've got this branch. This goes a bit longer. So this kind of ties into when someone asks if we evolved from apes, how come there's still apes? Okay, to be technical about it, we evolved from an ape-like ancestor, okay? But let's say this ape-like ancestor is down here, and humanity, Homo sapiens, could be this purple thing at the end with the 2 holes in it, okay? So we got to go through a lot of steps to get there, okay? That blue square is our common ancestor with, say, chimpanzees, and you may perhaps the apes that are around today, they're over here on this branch, but we're on this branch that went the other direction. So when you hear someone say branching off, you know, that's almost literally what happens if you look at it this way. And that also explains why we don't see a crocoduck or a fish frog or any of that kind of stuff, because that would involve, you know, something that would be jumping between 2 branches, and that's not how it works. That's not how anyone says it works. So stop strawmanning us. So here's what ties it all together, and this is the point of the video from Don Exodus 2. Link. But you can form one of these trees, and let's say you make a family tree based on morphology, which is the shape of the animal's body, and, you know, features, and you try to map them on based on the theory of evolution by natural selection. You try to arrange them as if this is how it worked. And then you can make another tree and say you base that one on the genetic code, and you look at the gene sequence letter by letter by letter, and you make your tree that way. And when you look at the 2, they line up almost exactly. So what you have are all of these multiple lines of evidence that all tie together and lend support to the theory as a whole. And of course, like any theory, it is falsifiable. Of course, you know, we're still waiting to see those fossil rabbits in the Precambrian or some human fossils next to some trilobites or anything like that. There are plenty of things that could, in principle, falsify evolution, but they don't happen. You know, you look for the stuff and you just don't see it. And the evidence, again, everything confirms everything else so thoroughly that at this point, it is in principle possible that we've got the theory wrong at its core, at the very foundations, you know, but that would involve an upheaval of pretty much not everything we know, but a lot. You know, something akin to finding out that, yeah, we actually live in the Matrix. You know, it's that level of upheaval that we're talking about. So if you got the evidence for that, by all means, let's see it. But it's just not there. So that's my argument for evolution.
We're making a video series showing you that you didn't come from the animal kingdom.
I hate to break it to you, everyone, but yeah, we're animals. Sorry. You know, that doesn't mean we need to throw our poo at each other or anything like that. But yeah, we eat and breathe and sleep, and you know, we have metabolism and we reproduce and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure how you would define an animal in such a way as to exclude us, other than to specifically say other than human. You know, so yeah, we're animals. Sorry. And for some reason, venomfangx seems to think that, you know, if you tell people they're animals, they're going to act like animals. But, you know, I don't know, if I tell you you're affected by gravity, does that mean you want to go jump off a cliff, you know, just because I throw a rock over a cliff and it's also affected by gravity and, you know, you're affected by gravity? Ooh, you know, wake up, man.
God loves you, and he wants to do fantastic things in your life. If you're going to keep rejecting him, there's not much he can do with you. So...
Okay.
Where did all the stuff come from? I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the universe. Where'd that all come from?
We always end up here, don't we? The good old, why is there something instead of nothing? I don't know. I mean, if your question is about all this stuff, you know, we have the Big Bang Theory, which is the best explanation we have right now for the universe as a whole. But you know, if you're asking why was there a Big Bang, or why do we have, you know, even if we knew all of the laws of physics, we would still be left with the question, why these laws and not some other laws? Even if that is all that there was, and that's not what I'm saying by any stretch. You're not going to hear any cosmologist claim that the universe up to the Big Bang is all that there is to reality. But one of the differences between theology and science, when a scientist doesn't know something, they're not afraid to say they don't know. That's part of what drives a scientist, is that act of discovery and claiming that new territory and getting more data and more knowledge for the next generation to build upon. We don't claim to have the answers in our back pocket. You're not going to ever see me point to any one book and say that everything in here is 100% accurate, without error, and is the ultimate answer to everything. So long story short, why is there something instead of nothing? I don't know. You don't know. Anyone who says they do is lying, okay? Your answers, as far as I can tell, stop at God. And I know, you say God is eternal and all that stuff, but you still can't say, why is there God instead of no God? Why is there something instead of nothing? We don't know. Stop pretending that you do. Unless you're just trying to entertain us.
Modern-day scientists agree that the universe, matter, time, and space came into existence a finite amount of time ago.
Almost, but not quite. The Big Bang was the beginning of matter, energy, space, time as we know them. Again, going back to what I just said, we don't have the complete laws of physics. We don't know what happened at the instant of the Big Bang, and we sure as heck don't know what happened before the Big Bang, or even if before the Big Bang is a valid question. Much like if you ask somebody what is north of the North Pole, or if you're at the very North Pole, try to walk north. Can you do it? It's one of those things. It's definitely a deep question, and it's something that's scientists aren't just sweeping that under the rug. I'm sure plenty of physicists are kept up late at night wondering about these kind of things. So
Matter, time, and space were created.
All right, I was wondering when I would get to point out a fallacy, and this would be equivocation, and he's taking advantage of words that have, more than one meaning or can be interpreted more than one way. Saying that the universe began to exist is not necessarily the same thing as the universe was created, especially if you mean created to be, made by an intelligent force, which I'm sure we'll get into soon enough. But began to exist does not equal created. Which again, if we're going to point out the example you mentioned earlier, I actually ended up cutting it, but he told a joke, and it was scientist says to God, "Oh, I'm going to create life." Makes life in his lab, and then God says, "Well, no, you didn't really create anything because you used my materials, right?" Ha 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 ha. Same kind of thing here, okay? Every example that you're going to try to counter me with, everything you can think of that's been created, like a Coke can or a painting or anything like that, is quote-unquote created with materials that are pre-existing already as a part of this universe that we're in. And all those things that, have creators, we have experience with them. We've seen paintings being painted. You can go to an art store and buy supplies. You can go to a Coca-Cola factory or the bottling company, whatever. You can see them. You can go to the sugar fields or whatever where they grow the sugar that goes into the Coke, and you can watch it get bottled or canned. Follow the truck to the store, all that kind of stuff. You can't say the same thing about the universe. So the second you try to, extrapolate something like that, it doesn't work. So, sorry, buddy, your argument fails.
That is extremely profound, because if matter, time, and space did not always exist, then the laws that govern matter, time, and space, like inertia and gravity and thermodynamics, also came into existence.
Not necessarily. It is completely possible that the laws of physics as we know them are part of a larger subset of laws. To a certain extent, that statement is probably true. I would bet money on that. Now, what those laws are and what they cover, we don't know. We don't know. But if our universe is part of a computer simulation, for example, you can't prove to me that it's not. If our universe was a computer simulation, then there would be laws of physics that govern how that computer runs and operates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which would be different laws completely from the ones that our universe is running in right now. Much like, if you have a video game, that's basically a universe on a computer. It's a really small and simple one compared to ours. But if you extrapolate in the other direction, it's completely possible. There is a higher reality. But again, that doesn't mean that that your Bible is an accurate representation of it, or is a message from the programmer, so to speak, or the guy that built the computer.
And whatever created them, which could not have been nothing, because nothing can only make nothing, so something created matter, time, and space.
Okay, and a video addressed to venomfangx probably isn't the place to get into virtual particles and 0-point energy and all that yummy stuff, but something from nothing actually isn't that implausible. Richard Feynman himself said, if you think you understand quantum theory, you don't understand quantum theory.
Something that exists without matter, time, and space that created matter, time, and space must be extremely powerful, quite intelligent to establish the laws and create enough stuff in order to sustain life and create intelligent life and allow it to exist. It would have to be eternal because it exists without time. That means it always existed and always will exist. It would have to be immaterial because it's not made of matter, so it would have to be untouchable and unseeable. And since it exists without space, it would also have to be omnipresent. That means everywhere. So something extremely powerful, extremely intelligent, that lives forever, that always existed, that is untouchable and unseeable, and is everywhere, created the universe.
Okay, so if this thing is so powerful and so intelligent and is eternal, conceivably it has forever to plan or think about anything it might want to do, isn't it possible that this thing set up a universe in such a way as to where all it would have to do is set up some laws of physics, and then he could put in a hot, dense singularity that would spontaneously start to expand, and then according to the laws of physics that he had set in place, the universe would expand and cool, matter would coalesce into galaxies and stars and planets, and on a small blue planet orbiting a typical star in a typical galaxy in a typical region of this great cosmos, there was a chemical event indistinguishable from an accident, yet planned from the beginning, which gave birth to a self-replicating molecule. That molecule began to make copies of itself, but the copying process was not perfect. And so, inevitably, according to the laws of physics, some replicators would leave more offspring behind than others. The variations that enabled them to do so would become more common as time went on. Over the course of billions and billions of years, this process, this non-random selection of randomly varying individuals, eventually gave rise to the diversity of life today. I'm not saying that that's exactly how it went down, but you can construct a coherent narrative that doesn't require any theistic sort of creator. For all we know, it just set up those laws and walked away. So until you can demonstrate that this thing is anything more than a deistic sort of entity, I don't see any reason to take the rest of your argument seriously, but we'll see what happens here. Just for the record, I know this is getting long here, so I want to clarify to everyone again that if we are debating whether or not the theory of evolution by natural selection is an accurate representation of what happens in the physical universe, then this whole thing about there being a creator or not isn't really relevant. Keep that in mind. The concept of a creator and the concept of evolution by natural selection are not mutually exclusive. False dichotomy.
Now, I don't know what that sounds like to you.
It could just as easily be a flying spaghetti monster or pink unicorn, and until you give me a reason to think otherwise, I'm not going to think otherwise. Sorry.
So let's talk a little bit about the Big Bang. book that the evolutionists say was the beginning of matter, time, and space, and that's as far back as they can think.
Yeah, once again, you got it a little bit wrong there, dude. Okay, first off, it's cosmologists and astronomers that talk about the Big Bang. Okay, they might happen to believe in evolution also. That's probably because they're scientists, and the scientific consensus right now accepts the theory of evolution, which is, I thought that's what we were talking about. I don't know why you're talking about the Big Bang. But anyway, there is a huge difference between, as you're saying, refusing to think about something and admitting you don't have the tools available to you to come to a reasonable conclusion. Again, going back to what I said earlier, a scientist is not afraid to say when they don't know. A desktop theologian like you says they've got an answer for everything. So that's the difference between us.
And that would indeed invoke the idea that God created the heavens and the earth, like the Bible says.
There you go with the equivocations again. Okay, even if there was something, and yeah, for lack of a better term, you want to call it God, fine. That still doesn't get you to the Bible is his word to us. You still haven't explained that one to me. It's, as far as I can tell, it's just another book like the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita or the Iliad, or the Odyssey, or the Epic of Gilgamesh. If you can explain to me how it's anything more, I'm all ears. I'm all ears. But as far as I can tell, it's just a book. God, maybe. Bible, no. Try again.
The Big Bang Theory has become something of an embarrassment to the evolutionist worldview.
Where'd you get that from? Big Bang Theory is actually a wonderful example of the scientific method in progress, and it's delivered some incredibly precise predictions, as outlined beautifully by Phil Helene's link. So there's some evidence for the Big Bang Theory. Okay, if you've got an alternate theory that explains that evidence, great. I'm all ears, but you can't just put your fingers in your ears and go la 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 and pretend that stuff's not there. And once again, you can pretty much say this about any scientific theory, okay? Accepting the Big Bang Theory does not mean you cannot be a theist, okay? It doesn't mean you cannot be a Christian, okay? For all we know, if this God thing exists, maybe this is how he went about doing whatever it is he's going to do, In the words of Galileo Galilei, who was a fervent Catholic, he was a devoted Christian, I do not think that the same God who would endow us with reason and intellect would expect us to forego their use. So, to the extent that you think there is an intelligence behind the universe, and to the extent that you think human beings can learn objective truths about that universe through the scientific method, you should accept what comes out of that. And I don't know why. It's just you got these hot button issues. Why is it no one gets up in arms about general relativity or quantum chromodynamics or anything like that? But you're all over this evolution and Big Bang stuff, and I don't get it.
They'll say things like, well, the Big Bang has nothing to do with the evolutionary theory.
Evolutionary theory has about as much to do with Big Bang theory as French cuisine has to do with meteorology, okay? I mean, there is a chain of causation. You can put the two together. If the weather is really, really horrible, we can't grow our crops and make food to eat and cook our French cuisine. But you don't need to necessarily focus on both at the same time, unless you're trying to look at zooming out all the way to the big picture. But the two fields exist as independent areas of inquiry that, it's all in the same universe. So you can take any two disciplines and link them together. But I guess Big Bang has to do with everything. But for some reason, the Big Bang never comes up when we're talking about economics or French cuisine or athlete's foot, So why this time? Why here? And once again, as a note, I'm assuming at this point that everyone's just kind of coming along for the ride, having a good time. But remember, the overlying topic is we're supposed to be talking about evolution. But notice how little time is actually devoted to that. And then when he does, he gets it wrong. And
really, it just comes down to this. I believe in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and you believe in the beginning dirt created the heavens and the earth. So,
citation, please. I'm pretty sure I never said that. I don't think Einstein said that, or Stephen Hawking, or Brian Greene, or Michio Kaku, or George Lemaitre, or George Gamma, or George Smoot, or Richard Muller, or Carl Sagan, or Neil deGrasse Tyson, or Leonard Susskind. And I've read a bit from all those guys, so I'm not sure where you're getting this from, dude. I don't claim to know anything for sure. Science at the best gives us provisional truths. We can be pretty confident about a lot of them, but we can't be totally confident about anything, really. Like Socrates said, the first step to knowledge is knowing that you do not know. That's kind of where it all starts. And once again, when you think you've got all the answers in your back pocket, you've just got your blinders on, and it's no good, man.
Don't tell me that mine is religious and yours is scientific.
No. Nope. Nope. You've got yourself a religion there, and I don't. And this is what you call moving the goalposts, okay? The whole the premise of his video is he's going to be talking about evolutionary theory, and then from there he jumps to the Big Bang, to the Big Bang is a religion. So now evolution isn't true because I have the Big Bang religion. That doesn't make any sense. Like, how do you define religion? Because, as far as I can tell, if Big Bang is a religion, then everything is a religion, then nothing is a religion. If you're going to stretch a word so wide that you can fit any kind of definition inside it, if you're going to stretch that word out to where it means anything, then when you use it, you are communicating nothing. Okay, so when you tell me that the Big Bang is a religion, I'm afraid I don't follow, buddy. And what does that really say when you're, I mean, maybe this isn't your best defense, but when your argument is, no, that's a religion, and that's, as does that, are you saying that if something's a religion, it's less valid? Is that, because again, you're not addressing the evidence of the Big Bang Theory itself. You're just saying, it's a religion, therefore what? I'm not the one that claims to have a religion. So if there's something that's, bad about him or something, like, do you understand when I say internal consistency? Probably not, huh? But I bet you know about cognitive dissonance, don't you?
Because science is defined by things we can test, repeat, and observe.
See the video from Phil Hellenes for examples of things relating to the Big Bang Theory that we can test, measure, repeat, observe, etc.
And neither of us can test, repeat, or observe the beginning of the universe.
That is true. But say in a court of law, for example, we don't need to kill someone's twin in order to convict someone, find them guilty of murder beyond a shadow of a doubt. Right? If you got the fingerprints and the blood and the means and the motive and, the weapon found in his car and all that kind of stuff, you didn't see the murder happen, but you can put all the pieces together, and that's the story that's going to make the most sense. Like, if you're going to put as I said earlier, cohesive narrative out of all of it, and that's what you do here. Same kind of thing with history. Science does not, I don't know where you're getting that definition of science from, because things like history, for example, that's probably the best example I can think of right now. You may or may not consider that science, but that's a discipline of rational discourse and inquiry about objective truths about reality. Right? So, you can't repeat things from history, but what you do is, anything that happens is going to leave some kind of mark, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and so everything to a certain extent is going to leave traces and clues and information behind. And when I say science, what I mean is really a big, larger umbrella term to include all areas of rational inquiry done in a rational, empirical manner.
The Earth is not millions of years old or billions of years old, and humankind is certainly not 35 million years old like the evolutionists say. So what evidence do I have of that? Well,
yeah, 35 million, right. Now, yeah, I know you said in your thing there you just didn't read the decimal point. Yeah, it's closer to 3.5 million, right? But I find this really, really telling, okay? I know that you think the cosmos is about 6,000 years old, and if I misread my notes, to where they said 60,000, I would know that wasn't it. And you've done stuff like this before, in your last video, you talked about Darwin's ride on the Bugle. And you had, I don't know if you still have this video up or not. Someone let me know, actually. But you had the one video where one of your proofs of giants living on the Earth, you showed a picture of a skeleton, but that picture was a well-documented entry in a Photoshop contest. But you presented that as evidence. All the stuff that Kent Hovind has claimed that you've copied that has been thoroughly debunked. Like you've really consistently shown us that you're either one, not doing your homework, and or two, not absorbing it and understanding it as well as you think you do. And yeah, it's great comedy. So we appreciate it.
I have many secular textbooks.
I don't believe you. In fact, I'll even make a little, I don't know if wager's the right word, but you have until 24 hours of this video being uploaded, and for every textbook you can show me on camera, I will donate $1 to any church or charity of your choice that accepts payments from PayPal. And yeah, we'll see about that. Up to 20. Yeah, 20. Offer expires while you wait. Operators are standing by. May not be suitable for small children and people sensitive to reason. Ba weep, grana weep, ninny bomb.
Let's say the oldest human civilization, or the oldest remnants of human civilization, only go back about 5,000 years, which is exactly what we would expect. There's no archaeological finds that date back before that concerning human civilization.
Well, all that really says is that, as far as we can tell, there isn't a human civilization that's older than, 5,000 to 7,000 years old or whatever. But, there are plenty of other things like, tree rings and geological data and stuff like that, the age of the Earth does not hinge upon the oldest human civilization that we can find. And actually, when you think about it, if we evolved gradually from less complicated creatures, then yeah, there shouldn't be civilization for the entire duration of the planet's existence, and that is something you would expect to see come up gradually, probably after humans had arrived on the scene. And hey, that's exactly what we find.
And that number has tripled to here in the year 2008. So if we just go and take this in reverse, we are left with something that looks identical to the biblical view of history, that the human population bottlenecked.
Wow. You want to talk about some fuzzy math here? I don't see where he's getting this from, but yeah, if you go click on his video, actually. Notice I'll link you to his, but he won't link to mine. Think about that. If you look at about 7 minutes and 30 seconds, just watch that. I don't think this is capturing right on my end here with all the video converting and stuff I got to do. But yeah, he flips the chart around and then adds in, I don't know where that little Noah's Ark crest comes from or what your source is on that. As you've mentioned earlier, none of us were around back there to take a census.
The Bible mentions dinosaurs many, many, many times, and that would be impossible if dinosaurs went extinct before mankind was here. I believe dinosaurs lived with man, as the Bible says.
And I might believe you if you can show me some human fossils next to some dinosaur fossils. Turns out we never see them in the same rock.
And that's pretty much it. And they largely went extinct during the worldwide flood. There's other reasons that they went extinct as well.
Such as? And while you're at it, what about the dinosaurs that could swim? Why did the flood wipe them out? That doesn't make sense.
If you've ever seen Jurassic Park with the little air bubbles and the amber and the mosquitoes, the air pressure and the oxygen levels was double in the past, which is why we find animals that were enormous. So if there was an increased amount of air pressure and oxygen on the planet, this would have increased lifespans and the size of animals.
And how long does it take amber to form? That's kind of besides the point anyway. But air pressure and oxygen doubled. Where did you get that figure from? That's news to me. I think you heard that from Kent Hovind, and I don't think you verified it from anywhere else. I don't think that's true. And what about the stuff about increased pressure and oxygen making things bigger? Where are you getting this stuff from, dude? Again, you can't believe everything Kent Hovind spoon feeds you. You should try to independently verify this stuff before you go out and just, open your mouth like that. But thanks for the laughs.